Greetings, friends. Welcome to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend David Pasqualone from Pensacola, Florida. He is a marketing consultant, cigar enthusiast, host of the Remarkable People podcast. He's got a book coming out. We're going to talk about all of that in just a moment. My housekeeping, please, would you kindly like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers, viewers from game streams and other stuff. Forgetting my own hype. T-shirt, coffee mug. 15 works of historical dream literature currently available. Most recent, book 15, The World of Dreams by Havelock Ellis, edited and updated and highly footnoted by yours truly, your humble editor. Also, BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com. You can see the full list of books there. You can get audio versions of the podcast. I'm working on a growing encyclopedia of sleep and dream related historical figures and incidents and a lexicon of terms that people might not have heard before. And that's enough about me. Thank you for that. Let's get back to David. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Oh man, it's an honor. It's nice to meet you, Benjamin.
Good deal. That's I think this first time anyone said it was an honor, and I'll take it. It's very awkward for me receiving any kind of praise, but I'll take it. I got to learn how to get better at that myself.
There we go.
So two things for sure. So you've got the and it is the Remarkable People podcast, and you've got a book coming out, Remarkable People Volume 1. Already working on Volume 2. It's Remarkable People Volume 1, How They Did It. And you can too. Links in the description below, but specifically people can go to davidpasqualone.com. Wanted to make sure to get all that out there. There we go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can talk about the podcast. What is the Remarkable People podcast?
The Remarkable People podcast is something we started 3 years ago, and it's just taking remarkable people. But the truth is we all have greatness inside of us that God put in there. But at the same time, sometimes we get hung up or we get life beat us down and we get stuck. So the Remarkable People podcast takes the stories of real people who not only achieved or overcame something, but we go through the entire chronology of their life from birth through today. And all along the way, we break down the practical steps of how they achieved or overcame something so we can too. So it's an amazing journey, and it's topical, it's evergreen. We've had over 100, I can't remember, 120 episodes recorded and released. We're in 3 years in, we're about to launch season 7, top 2% of all podcasts in the world, and we're just getting started. So whether it was I'm introverted or I got gang raped and held at gunpoint for a week, whether it's drug addiction and it's the 13th time to overcome it, or whether it's just prosperity and money, I mean, we have every topic you can imagine. And the guests are kind enough to come on and be really transparent, share the ups, the downs, the lows, the highs, the everything in between of how they succeeded. And you can too.
That is amazing. And I gotta say, that's like a grand tradition of humanity throughout history. This idea of looking to tremendously successful people and as exemplars, like how did they do it? What was their secret, so to speak, or what tools, tricks, tips, anything, their process that in that way, we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. And it's kind of what makes humans uniquely successful in the world. The idea that we can pass along this communication in the way other animals can't. We can have these traditions, this knowledge preserved over time and transmitted to each other. It's a tremendous benefit to all mankind, to specific people as well. And the idea that we don't have to figure it all out for ourselves, because you only got one life. You only got a certain number of years. And if you don't have to learn the same lessons over and over again. So I think it's wonderful that these guests are willing to share. I mean, that's really giving back to the world that they live in and helping other people achieve as much as they possibly can individually.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, just myself alone, it's helped me grow as a man. It's helped me form new relationships all over the world, and it's been nothing but positive. And then to read the emails that come in and to get messages from listeners literally all over the world saying, man, that really helped. Thank you. It's great that I get to be part of it, and it's awesome. So not because it's my podcast, but I highly encourage people to go check it out. share it with their friends and family, start listening to some episodes. And it's long format. These aren't 15 minutes. You're in and out. Some episodes are 45 minutes. Some episodes are 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
We cover what it takes to get the job done. And there's maybe an episode's on a specific topic, but along the way, a successful person is usually successful in most areas of their life. Mm-hmm. So they're dropping nuggets of gold all along the way through the interview. So it's just a great thing to listen to work out to run to drive to, and to grow from.
Yeah, that's exactly how I use podcasts. And, it's funny to think of it. Like, we used to think of podcasts as audio only, and now it's video as well, and still considered a podcast. That is what I do too. I mean, it was audiobooks way back when, and then it's been interview stuff. And I like hearing people talk to each other. Like, what's going on, and what's the dynamic, what's the topic, unique perspectives on things. And I think it just opens your mind to new ways of seeing the world and new possibilities that maybe you didn't know existed before someone mentioned it. And as you were saying too, that idea of usually successful people are successful across multiple dimensions. They've got an approach to problem solving or resilience or something that helps them stay focused, be methodical in a lot of ways about checking, making steady progress. And so I guess I wanted to ask you, out of all the people you've interviewed, I could say, well, who was your favorite? It's kind of a hacky interviewer question, but who can you think of someone where you were listening and you had an epiphany moment where you're like, I never thought of that. And then you were able to apply it and go, whoa. But I don't know if anything like that stands out to you.
No, absolutely. I mean, oh man,
maybe too many to mention.
No, it's one of those things that I want to share all these thoughts, but it would take hours just right there. And I might mention some people and then leave someone else who literally changed the course of my life and our listeners. Yeah. So I almost feel like dirty to say it. Does that make sense? It's like, how can I appreciate one and forget 10 others?
That's why I don't want to ask anyone what's your favorite. That's too personal.
Yeah,
that's too judgmental, But just any example of something you learned in a kind of epiphany way by listening to someone else.
Yeah, okay, so sometimes people say things. First off, the premise, everybody comes at life from a different worldview, but I believe there's a God, all truth comes from God, and people may claim it in different ways. Like, you may say Jack Welch or Donald Trump or Socrates, all truth comes from God, and we all have access to it. They just phrase it in different ways. Mm-hmm. And like you were just saying, so you and I may describe the same truth in a different way, but different listeners react to us differently because we just connect with them better. So I remember listening to a guest, and he's an expert on one topic, and he just said this comment. He said, the best revenge is success. And I was like, in the interview, I had to hold myself together because it was like 45 years of my life flashed just flashed before my eyes. And I'm like, that really powerfully readjusted my attitude. Not that I want to be vengeful towards people, but the whole premise of looking back and agonizing in that single passing statement, it corrected me. And then there's other people that they've encouraged me so much and helped me in my personal journey and walk. Like Jeremy Newsom, the dude owns an island with a resort. And I think the maintenance fees for the resort are like over $2 million a month. We never even talked about that on the podcast. But he talked about his honest struggle with alcoholism and losing it all and coming back. So he talks about, people use the term law of attraction or the secret or this and that. But Jerry and I came at it from a worldview of Christianity. And he's saying, I was down. I had a terrible mindset. I got my mindset right, and prosperity in my life thrived. And the dude's killing it in all areas of his life. So Bo Bissett, the guy had issues from his childhood and drug abuse and anger, and he found a breathing method that he uses. He calls it AMO, like an AMO breath. He helped me with that, and we even did some private coaching together. And it really helped me when I got frustrated or anxious to just calm down and level. And then, there's so many guests out of, like I said, 120 guests plus, because not all the episodes have recorded yet. It's just been amazing. So that's just some that spontaneously came to my top of mind.
For sure. Yeah. And so just to compare our perspectives, I am a agnostic, atheist, deist in a way. Like, humans didn't make this world. We are not the all powerful creatures that can alter reality. So something else did. And so the world exists. And that thing, I'm perfectly comfortable calling it God. I think I think we'd agree on that in terms of, even from our different perspectives, creator of the universe. But
I was just talking to somebody today, before this call, like a few hours before, it was a business call. And they brought up, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And I'm like, well, the chicken. And you don't have to believe in God, but your view and my view, if you think about it, if you take any baby, any child, any animal, a baby can't raise itself. It will die. So right there alone, evolution's crap. You had to have some creator, and what I call God, you may say the universe. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there was I think you said intelligent being. But either way, something made the chicken, and then the chicken had more chickens. But it wasn't like a cosmic fart and then everything grew from it, because that's impossible. You cannot if you took a human baby or a little bear and left it, it will die without a parent to raise it. So that right there, forget religion.
The conundrum. Yeah.
Yeah, but forget religion, forget opinion. Let's just go to truth, fact, real science, not Fauci science. You cannot have a child without a parent. Where the parent come from, that's where our views may differ.
Yeah. Well, and I'm kind of on that. I mean, not to go too far off in the weeds on this, but my perspective on it is, even if you believe in the Big Bang, and you're like, that is the most reasonable, likely thing, that had to be created by something as well. And so it's, in my mind, there's no contradiction to say, God said, let there be light, the Big Bang, the heat energy of the universe exploding into being. And then maybe we even had evolution, and that was all. It was, someone's going to flick that first domino, something. It's not me. It's not humans. We are not and I keep coming back to that idea of we are not capable of altering reality by will. So there has to be a higher power, something that did order reality the way it is. And that's, God is as good a word as any. So all of this to say, and come around to the idea that I see a lot of different philosophical perspectives, religious perspectives, it's Buddhism, Christianity, a lot of different ways of looking at the world that all share the same ancient wisdom. We were saying that earlier, and we've passed this down through generations. And I love the Christian perspective. And I like the way Jordan Peterson put it too. He says, the word sin in the Bible is originally an archery term, and it means to miss the target. So in order to miss the target, you got to actually aim at the target. But the broader philosophical idea of there's conceiving of a target at all. You got to aim yourself at something, or you're all over the place. What are you even doing? You can't accomplish anything without a goal in mind. And then you can develop a method, then you can refine the method. So a lot of these things, like, and it related to what you were just saying, and I forgot the last thing that you mentioned, the guy who owned the island and his advice to you. This all related to that. I lost it. What did
Jeremy Newsom?
Yeah.
Jeremy Newsom, is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, what was his advice to you? Because this all related. I was trying to loop back to what you said and make it connect.
Wait, no. Vic said the best revenge is success.
Yeah, that was
a different guy.
And then the other guy, what did he tell you again, or what did you learn from him, just to refresh my memory?
With Jeremy, it was just speaking truth and being positive, and
that's just right. Law of attraction type stuff. And
yes,
all of that, different ways of kind of phrasing the same basic principle. You've got to aim yourself at something. And definitely, if you're coming from that Christian perspective, it is to imitate in life the highest possible good you can conceive. And that's why you want people put it in the Christian parlance of living a godly life, or emulating Jesus in these in our interactions with other people. And I think it all says the same things, these broad universal truth things that are expressed different ways in different philosophies. So that's where we're
like
going
the
with
story,
that.
the story of Noah and the flood. That's a
That's a good
perfect
one.
example of what
Yeah.
you're saying, because I believe the Bible
Mm.
and recorded history lines up perfectly with the Bible. There's no contradiction or flaw, right? So for me, it's easy to believe. I'm a factual, mechanical engineering, systematic guy. A plus B, is C. That's just easy for me. But if you take any culture in the world over any recorded time dispensation over the course of history that we know of, there's always a story of a great flood.
Yeah.
So again, people may come at it or interpret the facts differently, but the fact is there was a great flood. Period.
Yep.
Okay. Every culture talks about that. Now, some people may say it was aliens. Some people may say it was a freaking, some kind of earth tremor. I mean, people may say it was God, but there was definitely a flood. So then how we interpret it based on the facts, that goes to a deeper level. But those facts just don't change. You love one another. You're kind to one another. There's a humanity that's special. Like I saw you have a cat and a dog.
Oh, yeah.
And I love animals. I love pets. But a pet and a human aren't the same,
No.
There's a consciousness, a soul that the pets don't have. And I don't want people from, PETA hating me now and sending me hate mail. But there is a difference between a human and a dog, I love my dog, but I'm not going to die for my dog. Benjamin, we just met. I'll take a bullet for you because you're a human. You have a soul. That matters,
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of the Great Flood, I just watched a Netflix series, of 5, 6, 8 short 30-minute episodes with this guy. I can't remember his name, but he's been investigating all kinds of stuff for years. And he talks about the Younger Dryas period, and how really this was a worldwide series or catastrophic flooding event that came at the end of a mini ice age, maybe, because all that ice came south and south and south, and then it melted back to the north to where it is today. And that water had to go somewhere, and it just went everywhere, and it destroyed a lot of civilizations. And there's a lot of abandoned sites that are being rediscovered that they're dating further and further back. It was, I can't believe how recently it was they discovered a place called Gobekli Tepe, I think it's called. And that set the time frame for human civilization back even further than we used to believe. So that's all fascinating stuff. So you look at that and you say, yes, is the exact story of Noah true? I'm a little more skeptical, fair enough, but that happened. That is referencing a real event that just killed a lot of people and reshaped the landscape, and a fraction of a fraction survived. And we're all their descendants, basically, which is basically the biblical story of Noah. And another great thing, so I go back to Jordan Peterson. I love that guy. I listened to his biblical series, and I appreciated his attempt to take it from a Evo Psych perspective. Set the mystical stuff aside. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But here, look, what can we understand from these stories? And the way he frames it is, from the Bible, Noah was walking with God. That's how he knew the flood was coming. And it's like paying attention to the right things, aiming yourself at the right goals, and you will receive communication from God, the universe. It's that ask and ye shall receive type of thing. You got to ask. You got to go looking. You got to seek, or you will never find. It's you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It's all these aphorisms we tell each other. It's all tied up in the same stuff. And the story of Noah is a great example of it.
Yeah, 100%. There's so many stories and so much we can learn. And you can take this so deep. But, when you were just talking about that, it reminded me of, the Bible talks about that when we trust him as our savior, we get the Holy Spirit that indwells in us. And it says exactly what you said. You have an unction from the Holy One and you know all things. And how many of us, we can't explain it, but we're like, man, we just know, red flag. Or I just know that even though everything logically says not to do this, that's exactly what I need to do. That's if you're a Christian, that's the Holy Spirit inside of you, loving you and guiding you along the way. And just to wrap up all the evolution stuff, I'm a super open-minded person, and I want to learn and I want to grow, but I'm not so open-minded that I let my brain fall out along the way. So when we have discussions, man, I'm down for wherever the conversation takes us. But when it comes to evolution, I tell my people I run into, my friends who believe that. And I'm like, listen, if you don't believe in God, I can respect that. We all have free will. And if you have a different, trust in how the universe was created and where we're going to go when we die, what's in eternity, is it just blackness or do we spend forever somewhere, right? I said, I can respect all that. But really, again, let's go back to truth, fact, and objectivity. The theory of evolution says everything comes from somewhere, that it breaks its own self. And I said, again, let's not just go hyper intellectual, right? Cerebellum here. Let's look at a fact. What's more complex, the human body or a shoe? Like, what do you think's more complex, the human body or a tennis shoe?
I think definitely human body. Yeah.
Yeah. Doctors can, they can study just the eye and they understand a fraction of it still to this day with all our technology and medicine. Well, if I unlaced a shoe, you're talking about billions of systems in the body. And for a cosmic fart to have created us and then to continue to grow and evolve, that's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it. But if somebody's been struggling with evolution or believing evolution, think of it this way. If I took a shoelace and a shoe, that shoelace belongs in the shoe. Put them both in a box and shake the box for 1 million years, 2 million years, 50 million years. You know what's going to happen? That shoe is not going to get laced. The whole box, the whole shoe, the whole lace is going to dissolve from being broken disorder. And evolution is disorder that happened to have order. It's not believable. So even if I didn't trust God in the Bible, I couldn't believe evolution because it doesn't make sense. Yeah. So that's my personal perspective. And I don't want trying to bash you or anybody else, but just look at it that way. If you couldn't tie a shoe by shaking the box for 1 million years, how the hell are you going to create a human body that reproduces, heals? I can cut myself and it can close while we're talking. I can be cold and my hair will grow more. There's a difference between adaptation and evolution. And again, even if you can't trust God, like for your own well-being, think through what you believe and why, because the truth is usually far different than the narrative.
Oh yeah. And excuse me, what keeps me in the skeptic area, but open-minded on both sides of these things, is the idea of evolution fitting with the laws of thermodynamics. I've had this presented to me, and it was kind of an epiphany moment for myself, the idea of entropy, that all things tend to decay, and yet we've had an increase of complexity, not a decay. So there's something, and there's a variety of ways to look at that, but that one always stuck out to me as like, yeah, that seems counterintuitive to the basic laws of thermodynamics as we understand it. So the
laws of thermodynamics are in the Bible. Like, I mean, all that stuff you can pull right out of the Bible. It's amazing. So yeah, it's just, like I said, I'm not arguing anybody. I'm not arguing you. If you said, Dave, I believe aliens came and populated our culture, our world. Okay, well, let's look at facts. So that's fine. I'm not going to force you to believe what I believe. I just have always, I mean, from a child, remember, and I'm 45. I think we're on the same age.
Yeah, 45 also.
Yeah. When we were in school, I went to public school. Mm-hmm. It was presented as the theory of evolution. And it was, hey, this is what is a viewpoint, a possibility. And now it's presented as fact. And buddy, in our lifetime, Benjamin, nothing's changed.
Yep.
It's like, again, you might hate me after this interview. You're going to delete
Not
this.
At all.
But look, during the 70s, they called it global cooling. During the 90s, they called it global warming. Then they can't get their shit together and they're afraid to lose funding, so they call it climate change. Buddy, the climate changes. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't be responsible humans. We shouldn't care for our planet. We shouldn't recycle. We shouldn't pollute. We should be responsible in every way. Mm-hmm. But the stuff that's being pushed out to make money and propaganda and drive people to agendas, you got to follow the truth.
Well, probably as a marketing consultant, you realize and appreciate how deviously genius it is to call it climate change. No one can argue with that. Yes, the climate changes all the time. And I'll share your skepticism as well of the track record of predictions that have not quite proven to be true. And
science.
We need to be a little more a little more skeptical of some of those things. But then and not to cut you off, but the second part of that was, if you look at it, God, Christians would say God has commanded us to be good stewards of the earth. You look at the folks on the left, they want to save the planet. We've got the same goal. We're no one argues that point. It's all method. What's the best way to do it? And my bottom line on that is, anyone who tells me, look, all you need to do is give me more of your money and more control over your life and I'll fix all your problems, that's a shyster. I'm not, that's a scam artist, and that's these government and globalist agencies that are selling us this lie, in my opinion. I don't trust them.
I agree completely.
Right. So, yeah.
If you want the truth, okay, again, this is my opinion, but if you want the truth, you go to the facts. And I believe that's in the Bible. Okay. That's if you want the truth, you go to the facts is a fact. But to me, I go to the Bible, right? But if you want the truth of man, you follow the money. And the same unethical people who said global cooling, and the same unethical people who said global warming, who are now saying climate change. Same scientists. And when they say, like, these statistics, 9 out of 10 scientists believe in global climate change. Really? You mean the scientists you pay to say that? Or you're not surveying all these other scientists? Like the people who actually use science and fact, like, we can go so many directions, bro. I don't want to distract from the course of your interview. Yeah, but if you're listening to this, the takeaway is, man, please think about it. Like masks. I want to pull another one. Come on. It says on the damn box, masks don't work.
It literally does.
It says on the box.
I don't know if we'll end up getting a takedown on this, but they've loosened up on some of their C-19 restrictions on YouTube. But that's one of those things I'm afraid to be honest, and people shouldn't be. It's like, why do we have to worry about reading the actual box that these face diapers come in that says they don't do anything to prevent the spread of disease? It says it on the box. It blows me away that we even have to worry about saying that truth. And what, I get demonetized, I get a takedown, I get a strike. Who knows?
Yeah, no, dude, I got pulled off YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Apple. I have emails from them telling me basically, F you, we censor your podcast. Like reviews, like it's just crazy. But the fact is, I quoted the Constitution one time. I wasn't even arguing. I was just like, hey, the Constitution says this is not the best way to do things. This isn't right. And they pulled me down for hate speech because I quoted the Constitution. Yeah. And then, I mentioned I had to go after these social media companies a couple of times, and thankfully I won the appeals. But the fact is, if like this, I'm saying fact. The manufacturer themselves says this won't work. Putting a t-shirt over my face won't work. Scientifically, okay, an odor particle is smaller than a COVID particle. Have you ever talked to somebody with a mask or a t-shirt on their face and you can still smell their bad breath?
Oh, yeah.
Buddy, if bad breath's coming through, COVID's coming through.
I love the idea that if your underwear can't contain a fart, what's the mask doing?
Yes, I said that, but I didn't want to be crude. It's just
we
crazy.
can go there. This is anyways, not adults only, but it's not for kids.
But see, that's just it. They're going to label stuff like this as misinformation or conspiracy theories. They might. No, it's reality. It's science. It's truth. It's on the box of the person who makes it and is financially benefited. Yeah. But it's crazy, man.
And just for YouTube, official advice, talk to your doctor about your personal health issues, all that good stuff. But these are just the opinions.
Dave Pasquale, this is his opinion, not Benjamin.
The opinions on this show do not represent the opinions of YouTube, although they should. But I did not. That's great. We can go on for hours about that stuff. But I wanted to come back to
just this week. Ironically, just this week, I told Facebook that they should spend more because Facebook, Meta. I don't know if you do it. I work with Facebook and Meta a lot because of with my clients.
I have an account I post to. That's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, working on the business side is like a freaking nightmare. Everything's breaking down. And I just got fed up with it. I'm like, if you guys spend less time fact checking and policing and spreading propaganda and more time actually on your core software, you'd actually help the world. And they ironically, my account got locked the next day.
Well, that's a big deal with Elon buying Twitter. I mean, he basically fired the entire trust and safety team that was basically just the stick to the agenda, censor everyone else, propaganda team. Yeah. And he's like, what we need is a functional app. Where's my programmers at? And we'll just make it work and release all these people from Twitter jail. I mean, I was in Twitter jail myself for about 3 months after, I'm going to say it delicately, advocating that a person convicted of murder should receive the most severe penalty. And then
I'll echo that. Pedophiles, rapists, murderers, people are truly proven, and for sure, give them a Bible in a couple months and then take care of them.
Yep. And they considered that, targeted harassment, me giving an opinion that, the death penalty was an appropriate consequence for murder. You're free to disagree. You're free to tell me I'm an idiot. You're free to ignore me, block me, censor me for targeted harassment. These rules never made sense. And, Papa Elon comes along and says, you're absolved of your sins. Come on back into the party. And, hopefully I can still have controversial opinions like that in the future.
But it shouldn't even be controversial. That's just it, Benjamin.
Yeah.
If you and I disagree, we disagree. Yeah. I mean, we used to get in fist fights as kids, and who cares? Like, it's not like you're beating somebody up and you're picking on them or bullying them or harassing them or terrifying them. That's all wrong. Yeah. But if me and you have a different opinion, that's freaking life. There is no human recorded history of any peace on this planet aside from when Jesus walked. And even then, obviously, there was conflict. But what I'm saying is, if you took any country and within that country, there's always going to be bias. There's always going to be bigotry. There's always going to be just idiots. There's always going to be bias. You can't take a family and not have arguments within the family. And then you take that family and there's arguments within the neighborhood. And then you take the neighborhood and you got the Northeast and the Southeast. And then you take that and it's within the states. And you take that, it's within the countries. You take that. If we had aliens, we'd be fighting with aliens. We're, as humans, we have that sinful nature. And we're going to be just, sadly by nature, drawn to conflict and evil.
Yeah.
That's why God's so wonderful, because he brings us to love and joy and peace. But there's no history, there's no society that has ever or will ever exist without bias, even within itself. Yeah. My father's from southern Sicily. My grandmother, my mother's side is from southern Italy. They hate each other because it's like a lesser class. You go to Australia, they treat the indigenous people terrible. You go to freaking America, there's still Native Americans who have to stay on the reservation because they're not recognized as American citizens. Today, in 2022, going to 2023, India, there's the caste system. If you want to live in a fantasy land, is bigotry wrong? Yes. But there'll always be different nations, there'll always be different cultures, and within those cultures, there's going to be bigotry and bias. That doesn't make it right, but it makes it life. Welcome to humanity.
No, it is true. And that's probably the best way I've come to understand the idea of original sin. And I'm not a biblical scholar. I'm not going to phrase this all correctly. I don't care where it came from necessarily. What am I trying to say? I don't invest belief in specifically the Garden of Eden story. I'm not a Christian, but the concept that we are all, as you said, a sinful nature, we are, and again, the concept of sin is missing the target. It's the basic concept. We are flawed creatures that have the capacity to make mistakes. That capacity to make mistakes is eternal and unalterable. All we can do is pay as close attention as we can and make the best effort we can to not make mistakes. And mistakes will still happen. So I kind of look at that as the fallen nature of mankind in a sense, is just the basic, purely psychological, scientific, observational fact of humans being capable of mistakes. We are not perfect, and nor will we ever be. And that was my comment on that. So
no, and the Bible supports that completely. The Bible says, "For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God." Mm-hmm. And it talks about in the Old Testament and the New Testament how we all fall short, and that's exactly why Jesus came and died for us. He is like the ultimate sacrifice. So our shortcomings, our sin, our missing the mark, is forgiven and wiped clean, and we can be whole and perfect and with God through eternity. So what you're saying is completely supported by the Bible, you know?
Yeah, I like it where you can kind of achieve the same conclusion by a different path. And it gets, I think, greater validity because you look at, well, both of these completely opposite perspectives agree on the same thing. And that, I think, it adds to the idea of, well, this is more likely true than not. So if you're going to choose what to believe, then do things that make sense. Look at the world through perspectives that make sense. So, and again, what I was trying to do a minute ago before we can go on, I'm sure we could, you and I wanted to get back to the book, the Remarkable People, Volume 1, How They Did It, and You Can Too. You were mentioning some of the people that were going to be in the book, and I wanted to give a shout out to that.
Yeah. So what we did is, this hasn't been planned for a long time. Back in October, it was, I'm getting ready for church, and be blunt, I was in the bathroom, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, time to write a book. You're going to get 12 authors. You're going to have 12 chapters, and it's going to be laser focused on what they're experts in. So we have the Remarkable People book, Volume 1, How They Did It, and it is whatever they accomplished or overachieved or overcame, and how we can too. So it takes these interviews we've done, puts it in a different format where it's like a hybrid of their story mixed with the practical steps. And at the end of the chapter, in case you missed something, there's a checklist. Okay, how Jeremy did it, and you can too. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Some chapters have 3 steps, some chapters have 12, but we kept it in that kind of practical how-to manual because we want to see people grow. We're not in this, not one author, not myself. We're not taking any money from the book. I'm actually spending money for the book. We're putting 100% of the proceeds back to the podcast so we can reach more people. Why? So we can help more people. Again, to take any income and put it back to reach more people, to help more people. All of us, thankfully, are doing really well in life financially. We're doing really well in life in the ways that they're writing. So why not share it with the world so everybody can thrive and be better? So that's what we're doing. So the Remarkable People book is scheduled to come out in ebook and physical paperback on January 1st. Then in 2023, we'll come out with the audiobook and the hard copy. And then hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have Volume 2. And we already have 5 authors signed up for Volume 2. So we're just going to keep bringing the books, chapters, 12 at a time. 12 authors, 12 chapters, 12 life-changing solutions that can help you grow.
Very cool. And so the Volume 1 is mostly taken from podcasts you've already done, but then you're going to start getting new original stories in Volume 2. I think you mentioned one of
we had
Jackass and Dave Ramsey.
Yeah. No. So the guests from the podcast share their story openly, and that's free and that's online. So you can go to any podcast player in the world. You can go to my website, davidpascalone.com, and you'll see you can go to remarkablepeoplepodcast.com, and it'll bring you to the page. But what we did is we took the guests from the show and just took 12 of them, and that's Volume 1. Then we'll take 12 more, and that's Volume 2. So right now we can already do 12 volumes if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
but we're just focusing on Volume 1, and the whole purpose is to help people grow and glorify God. So cool. That's how it works. So the people who are signed up in Volume 2, there's people who are, there's people in the podcast and Volume 1 you've never heard of, but man, those can really remarkably change your life. Those chapters, those audio segments. There's people in Volume 2 who you and I were discussing off camera where they've already signed up or give me a verbal commitment. Hey, we want part of this. And they're more quote unquote famous. We have famous people in Volume 1, but the ones that signed up for Volume 2 already were ones that are like, I can't get the timeline for Volume 1, but put me down for Volume 2. Gotcha. So it's pretty exciting.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool. And I didn't mean to commit anyone out there if you haven't nailed it down or received a product yet in terms of what their contribution will end up being. But I had a similar, maybe not exactly, although I do some of my best thinking on the throne, it's similar epiphany myself or inspiration towards a book series, and that specifically the idea of a series that could be expanded and focused in that theme. So for me, it would be, going with my unique branding and my concept of the term, it would be a wizard's guide to blank. And the first thing I was going to do, and this is a teaser out there, just 5 seconds, you catch it now or you never hear it again until I'm ready to start writing. But the first one I'm thinking is going to be a wizard's guide to Aesop's fables. bring those back and look at what are the psychological lessons we can learn from these and how have they been incorporated into modern psychology? Because a lot of what modern psychology is going back to, say, ancient Greek and other cultural heritages of storytelling. And they tell us about humanity, about ourselves, about how it functions, and what the best way is to resolve certain problems, or how to understand certain situations. So then I wanted to move on to other stuff, maybe eventually a Wizard's Guide to Dream Interpretation. Once I finally figure out what the hell it is I do, which is an interesting thing too, and I've said this before in other conversations with folks, the idea that I don't know where ideas come from. Science doesn't know. We can watch it happen. We can see the moment it hits the brain and lights up different areas, but we don't know what makes that happen. And I mean, you go back to the ancient Greeks and they said poets were inspired by the muses. They were attributing it to a supernatural godly force. So that, and I've explained this a couple episodes back, but we have a foundation of certain knowledge and we build on it. And eventually we get to the top of the pyramid, and then there's a flame, or the old representation of the all-seeing eye, the apprehension of a new idea coalescing. And there's a gap between as far as we can go with our thinking and achieving that sudden new understanding. And I think that gap is, what I lovingly refer to as, magic, part seriously and part tongue-in-cheekly, but you might as well say God exists in that gap. God is the thing that bridges the gap and allows that sudden inspiration. It could be the muse, it could be the Lord Almighty, but there's something amazing that happens there that is unexplainable to so far. I was going somewhere with all of that. I had the idea of the Wizard's book and understanding myself. Oh, okay. So that was, I don't understand what I do. I don't understand where my associative connections come from. Now it's training and experience, but it's also aiming myself at being of benefit to the person. If I don't care to give a good answer, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to pull it out of my butt for no reason. There has to be the reason. You got to aim yourself at that target of being of benefit and providing a good answer. And then you look for it, and like magic, it comes to you. I don't know what that is. I don't know how it works. So as soon as I do, maybe I'll be writing a book about it. We'll see.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's so much to that question, but as a business consultant, as a marketing consultant, that's some of the stuff I talk to people every day. And you see people you think are mega uber successful, running huge corporations, and they still want to know what they should be when they grow up,
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to find our purpose and to really live that passionately, and then everything will fall into place. But going back to ideas and dreams, the Bible talks about how it says, a dream cometh through the multitude of business. Meaning, like what we do every day and all that activity, that's where the physical dream can come from at night, and all the thoughts and ideas. That's where that's where my dream is. That's what I'm looking to do. You can kind of use that differently. The context is actually talking about words and vow and how important it is to keep our promise. And it says the verse after, vow is not a vow and defer to pay it. That's like, whoa, you basically, if you're going to make a promise to God, you keep it. If you're going to make a promise to anybody, you keep it, but especially God. But a dream coming through the multitude of business, that's just showing like all the things that happen to us, quote unquote, good or bad, all the activity, all the stuff from our childhood to adulthood. That's what makes us unique. And then boom, we have that one epiphany moment. You have the $10 million idea. You have the freedom, like, holy crap. I've been struggling with this addiction. I've been struggling with this habit or behavior for 25 years, and that's why I do it. And then you're free. So it's just so interesting how God created us and how the mind works and how it all ties together.
I think so too. Yeah, it's a much more magical world than people realize. It feels mundane because we get used to it, but then you see things or experience things, and you're like, there's more to this. There's something out there. And keeping an open mind on that too. That idea of maybe there's something more, and maybe I can see it if I look for it. Kind of a thing. Well, this is, we finally came closer to the dream thing. We were talking to him earlier, and I don't know how you're doing on time in terms of, do you want to ask me some questions about dreams, or do you want to jump into your dream experience and we can ask questions along the way? Up to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I try to come into this blank slate, tabula rasa over there. But so we can go whatever direction you want. I just had a dream like 25 years ago. It was a nightmare. Mm-hmm. And then it almost exactly happened in reality. So I just wanted to kind of pick your brain, what your thoughts were on that. Not that you're God, but, what do you think from your experience and your learning on the topic? And then I do have other dreams where I don't even fully remember them, but when they happen, it's just this reoccurring pattern. It's all reality based. It's not like, clowns are flying and they're trying to pick me up and throw me in a bed of roses. It's like real people, real situations, real stress. And then there are some maybe things that are, I'm going to use the term weird, like off, like they're not reality. Mm-hmm. But it's always stressful and like tormenting me. So that's why I was like, if I can talk to Benjamin and he has some clarity on it, maybe I'll be free and get rid of these damn nightmares.
So with the specific nightmare 25 years ago, is that related to the more recent recurring ones, do you think? Or is that
it is
different? Or
it is kind of tied together. It is kind of tied. So what happened was, before I got married, I loved the woman I was going to marry. And, I used to read the story of Samson and Delilah. Why did Samson keep listening to her? Why did he let her trick him? Well, if you read the Bible, it says because he loved her.
Yeah. And
I never understood that. And why did Adam fall and Eve fall? Well, Eve listened to Satan, and Satan always takes a grain of truth and twists it. He said, if you eat the fruit, you shall not surely die. Yeah, physically at that moment you're not, but you're going to die spiritually, and all generations to come now have sin to deal with, missing the mark, right? Because she disobeyed God. But Adam, he said, I'm choosing Eve, my love for Eve over my love for God. So they both sinned. And me and you would have probably done the same. We would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
And so Eve trusted Satan over God. Adam loved Eve more than God. So men and women now are both screwed, and it carries through to today, right? But that's why Jesus sent his son. But going back to that and kind of tying it all together, with before I got married, I knew I was not supposed to marry this woman. Now, I still believe that, you can't change the past. God knew I was going to, and God forgives me. And thank God that I have these two amazing teenagers. I mean, I wouldn't have had them without that journey. So would I trade everything and do it again if I could have my two kids? 100%. But could I have my two kids and not go through that? Heck yeah, I'm signing up, right? But that's just not life.
Yeah.
So anyways, before I got married, there was a ton of stuff that went on, and I knew I shouldn't get married, but I loved her, and I disobeyed. I disobeyed God to marry my wife because I loved her. But I even had this nightmare of her leaving, going back to where she's from, and then me trying to get a hold of her, talk to her, to work things out. And her stepfather and mother would pick up the phone and laugh at me and not let me talk to her. 25 years later, that really happened.
Wow.
And it was like, I was like, wow, like you were trying to warn me, God. The way I interpret it now, obviously, because it was it was like watching a movie. It was like God was showing me, like, Dave, if you disobey me, this is what's going to happen. And then in my mind as a human, like, no, that's not going to happen. Sure enough, man, that happened. So why do I share a sense of intimate and failure? That's a giant failure. If you're not interpreting that as my failure, that I chose a woman over God, you should punch me in the face, right? I mean, that's wrong. So, but let my failure be your success. If you're struggling, there's such a thing as, pre-marriage jitters, but it's like this big in reality. If you're about to make a vow to God and a vow to yourself, and then a vow to your spouse and your future children and your family for marriage, man, take that seriously and don't make it unless you're ready to finish the course. Because I kept my vow and I went into overtime to keep my vow, and it damaged me, it damaged my children, damaged those around me, but it all started back to my sin. I chose this woman I loved over God, and he told me not to. But that was a dream I had that I never understood why I had it until it happened.
Yeah. And that's a lot of fascinating stuff involved in that. So I I try to stay in my lane in terms of what I know for sure. Like if I'm going to tell someone something, it's because I believe that is true and I have sufficient justification to do so. So what I set aside as outside my wheelhouse is prophetic dreams. In a way, I believe they happen. I think you're telling the truth. I've had more than one person tell me I dreamt that it happened. It's real. That is something that happens. I don't know what to make of that. Like if you brought me a dream and asked me, is this dream prophetic? I couldn't tell you. So what I try not to do is like I said, advise beyond my ability in that regard. Now, the interesting
that's
thing,
why the Bible talks about people who say they're prophets and they lie, they deserve to be stoned. So I'm glad you're telling the truth.
Exactly. No, you got to know your limits. And that's actually, I can take you this far and no further because I don't know the territory. If I promise more than I can deliver, I'm screwing myself and you. That's just ridiculous. So the other half of that is what can I do? Well, I'm pretty good with the psychological aspect of things. So if we looked at this purely from that angle, initially, we're going to get to the other part, but it makes sense that a dream would come to you in a more, we can deceive ourselves in the daylight in a way that lets us minimize things we don't want to confront and maximize the hope of positive outcomes. And then we go to sleep and a lot of those filters and distractions come down and we see things more honestly, more directly, because we can't suppress them by the same active mechanisms. So a dream like this would be very likely if you saw some pretty serious red flags before, and it sounds like you did a little bit, and your brain says, here's how bad it could go if all of these red flags come true. Now, where that falls apart is the specific behaviors that then happen 25 years later. I don't know that psychology can explain that. I mean, it can tell you why you would have suspicions and that they were probably justified, but it can't say why that exact vision played itself out. That's the dividing line. That's where it falls short for me of couldn't tell you why you were able to see it that clearly at that time. God is as good an answer as any, some people would say if they're Native American traditions might say spirits of your elders came to you and brought you wisdom. But I think it amounts to the same thing in a way. It's like, it's this power beyond that we don't understand. I mean, in the 1800s, they were all about, psychic powers. They thought the brain had abilities, sixth sense. That's when that all became popular. And that fed into a lot of the research on dreams and, more than one story in the books I've published of prophetic dreams. It's a huge entire chapters devoted to it, and it goes back to the tradition from the Bible and stuff like that. So all of that gets mentioned. So that would be my initial perspective on that specific experience. I don't know if you have more questions for me about it or if that.
No, then it would be like the nightmare that I have now. Cause that happened and it happened till I got married and then it went away. And then in 2015, when everything came to the surface and blew up, at the moment it happened in reality, it came back. It's like, holy crap.
Yeah.
God warned me way back before I got married about this exact moment. So I don't want to get into prophetic things because I believe our truth is the Bible and we're led by the Holy Spirit, and how many people go astray listening to prophets. And just like, people believe in angels, well, there's also demons. And
can't have one
Satan
without the other.
Yeah. You know what the difference is between an angel and a demon? A choice. An angel is one that stayed with the Lord and trusted him, and demons are the fallen angels that trusted Satan. So we don't know how many are on this earth based on what the Bible says in reality, but I think it said like a third of the angels fell. I don't know how many a third is. Is it 1 million? Is it 200 trillion? Yeah. We don't know. But sure. Yeah. So when you hear something, I always run it through the filter. Does it line up with Scripture? Because God's not going to lie. God doesn't change his plans. Does it line up with Scripture? Is it good? Is it holy? Is it real? Is it just? Is it right? Because God's not going to tell you to go. He'll tell you to go to war, but he's not going to tell you to brutally murder somebody who's innocent. You know what I mean? Yep. That's not how it works. Yeah. So when people have these thoughts, Satan can put thoughts in your head. Satan put thoughts, and Jesus said, it talks about in the garden Not the Garden of Eden, but
out in the desert, right? For 40 days.
Yeah, out in the desert. Yeah, I want to say the Garden of Gethsemane, but my mind's not functioning on all cylinders. So forgive me if that's the wrong reference.
Too. Yeah.
But after 40 days of fasting, Jesus is in the wilderness, and Satan comes and tempts him 3 times. And in one section, it says in a second, he showed him the nations of the world, and Satan's saying, he's the prince of the power of the air of this earth. And he's like, I'll give you everything, all the power, just betray God and follow me. And what's Jesus do? All 3 times he's tempted, he says, nope. He quotes scripture, and then Satan flees because Satan doesn't want to hear the truth. He doesn't want to hear scripture. But Satan, if he can put thoughts in Jesus' head, he can put thoughts in your and my head. So that's why we have to listen to what the thought's saying. And Rob Jackson, he taught me, son, you asked me about a podcast guest who changed my life. Dude, that guy changed my life tremendously for the better. And one of the things he told me is, because I used to wake up, you suck, you're no good, you're useless, you're worthless. And this isn't just for a short period. I mean, this was for like a majority of my life. And Rob and I were talking off camera, and he's like, when you hear the voice, is it saying I suck, I'm no good, or is it saying you suck, you're no good? And I'm like, it says you suck. So I'm telling you, probably right there, Dave, that's not your thoughts. It's like Satan's putting, or one of his demons is trying to put thoughts in your head about how bad you are when it's not truth. It's not biblical. It's not truth. It's not God's love. It doesn't line up with reality. So you need to quote scripture out loud and let those bastards run. And sure, he didn't say that. That was my interpretation.
Yeah.
But sure enough, man, I've had such a more victorious life, and it's so much better. I mean, like so much better. I wake up now and I'm not thinking from the moment I open my eyes in consciousness how worthless I am. And it was just the voices you're hearing, and not voices like I need to go see a doctor, but you know what I mean? But is it saying you or is it saying I? You still need to address the problem because you shouldn't be thinking horrible thoughts about yourself either. But this is a whole different conversation than oppression or possession. So, yeah, but going back to tie it all together, listening to these voices and the dreams, you got to find a balance. A false balance is abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. If me and you said there's nothing to dreams, that would be crazy. If me and you said dreams are everything, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
The opposite of crazy is crazy.
Yep.
But we need to find that balance in life. And that's what hopefully we'll find here today, and your listeners will too.
Yeah, I think so. There's so much good stuff there. But the idea of, first I wanted to say, the idea of, there's another way of looking at the idea of this dream having come to you as a warning and you not obeying God at the time. I would reframe it slightly as maybe simply showing you what you're going to suffer in a way that, here's what you're in for. This is going to happen. And knowing that you were going to make that choice anyway. And I may not look at it as a disobedience as much as, sometimes we look at a path we're going to take and we go, this is going to suck, but I'm going to do it anyway, because there's something I need down that road and there's going to be suffering involved. And as you said with your kids, that may have been the only way to get there. So if this was a vision from God, he might've just been saying, here's how it's all going to turn out. Just so you know ahead of time, prepare yourself. I want to let you know what you're in for. So that's one way of looking at it. Rather than a personal failure, more of a, someone just gave you a heads up and you said, all right, I guess it's got to be that way. So it might be another way of looking at it.
That is true for some people, and I appreciate you being gentle with me, but I want to call a dog and a cat a cat. Buddy, I was just disobedient. I followed my heart more than I followed my Lord and Savior.
Fair enough. No, fair enough.
So I'm the kind of guy, if I screw up, I'm going to tell you I screw up. If I succeed, I'll give the glory to God, hopefully. But I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to be like, I just want to be real. So what you're saying, I respect, I'm thankful for, and I agree with. I agree with that completely. I've just had 25 years to search my soul, and buddy, it was my own sinful choice.
Gotcha. Well, fair enough. No, yeah, and you are the authority on that ultimately with your self-reflection. I also wanted to mention from the way you were talking about, so many things, they pop into my head and they fly out so fast. A lot of the way biblical advice lines up with psychology, and specifically your experience, the idea of being beset by demons. We talk about our internal demons. We make it metaphorical, and having, they used to call it the demon rum had a grip on someone, and that meant they were an alcoholic. We have new words for it now, but that's the idea. Definitely. And it's a lot of it is about reframing, because what you do, you get someone into, counseling and therapy, and they tell you, I'm just a loser. I can't do anything right. I've never been any good. I'll never be any good. And you start challenging those thoughts as a cognitive behavioral therapy side of things, and you start reframing it. And I think that's part of what this fella did for you, was like, those voices are not there to be helpful. Those are, if we took the supernatural side out of it, which we can, or we can consider it the same thing. Practically, those things it's not helpful, useful thoughts to say, I'm worthless, always be worthless. You want to say, I'm not as good as I could be. Okay, now how do I get better? I mean, just that change of, beating yourself up to, if you're going to suffer, you might as well suffer towards something better rather than just suffering for no reason. And that's why we, get down on people throwing a pity party for themselves. Like, this isn't doing anybody any good. It's not doing you any good. You're not helping anybody else. You could choose to live there. You could stay. No one can drag you out but you. But I'll offer a hand, And that idea too of there was another point. Almost had it. It's from the books as well. The idea of what I mentioned, a specific book. So my second book 2 of my ABC series, it's Augury, Bibliomancy, and Chaos, the ABC series. It is entitled The Mystery of Dreams, and it is the recorded sermon of a preacher from the 1600s. And he talks specifically about how to tell whether it's a dream from God, or it's a dream from the devil, or it's just the vain dreams of mankind. And kind of to bottom line, his advice in a way, it's, what you fix your mind on during the day is what will come to you at night, now for good or ill. So the modern expression lines up very well with garbage in, garbage out. If you're fixated on all these negative, sinful thoughts, lusting and greeding and slothfulness and all the classic stuff, that's going to come up in your dreams, and you may torment yourself. You may have fantasies that are fulfilled in the dream towards these obsessions. But if you fixate your mind on more positive things, that is also what's going to come up in your dreams. It's going to be partly your fears, but also your hopes. And the idea of, again, aiming at that target, whatever you aim your mind at during the day, you're puzzling over, how do I help my friend? And then maybe that night or the next night, a dream comes to you and your friend's there, and you have this experience with them. And if you reflect on that the next day, it can give you some insight into, what if I tried this? What if I tried to help them this way? It seems like that's kind of what the dream was saying. And the way I conceptualize it is, this is us talking to ourselves. Maybe it's God. I'm not going to rule that out, but definitely us saying, what if? What would that look like? How would this work? We let our imagination run wild into different, again, the trial and error type of thing. We do a lot of trial and error in our head, and then we can bring it out into the world without having to live every trial and error. So those are all my thoughts based on what you were saying there.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, I think, again, most people look at, they categorize themselves and other people, and they think, oh, we're so different. Where I do believe there's one God and one way to eternity with him. But I think a lot of the language and nomenclature and stories you and I both share, it's all the same. We're just interpreting the facts differently. But again, it's like a code. You can have all the same characters, and you have to figure out and solve the puzzle, but there's only one combination that opens a door. So we look at things differently, but the facts that we all have are the same. It's just, are we going to interpret them ourselves? Are we going to make crap up that sounds good? Or are we going to listen and learn from each other and grow and find the true solution? Because if this is a fact, you're right and I'm wrong on any topic. I'm right and you're wrong on any topic, or we're both wrong and we need to find the truth.
Yeah.
There's only 3 options. True. So let's do it together.
Yep. Well, speaking of doing it together, it sounds like it's a good time to maybe transition. We got 104. There we go. Into the most recent example of your recurring dreams, and we'll see if we can figure out what the puzzle is enough to change them going forward for you or make them stop entirely because they're no longer necessary. So my basic process, I shut up and listen. You tell me kind of a beginning to end narration of the dream. Doesn't have to be very long. And then we'll go through it again and work out something together. Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks highlighting the psychological principles which inform our dream experience and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, featuring the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com. One thing I was going to say is, like, what's the benefit of dealing with a recurring dream? Why care? Why bother? You know, and number one, some of them are pretty disturbing and people would be like, yeah, I'd rather not experience that. If there's a way to make it stop, fantastic, let's do it. But there's a deeper benefit too. And the idea behind recurring dreams is that there is some unresolved problem, or at least something that you personally feel somewhere inside you needs an answer. So what that does is the fact of a recurring dream, it's eating up a certain amount of bandwidth. Mental bandwidth is what I call it. You know, it's like having you got 100% of your potential energy, you got 10% tied up in this problem that you just keeps running through your head. That energy is not available for something else more productive. You know, it's stuck in a loop of something that is unresolved. So if you can shut that down, close it off, deal with it, get the meaning you need out of it, it frees up that mental bandwidth to put towards other stuff. Now you can bring a new problem in and work on that instead. So that, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. The idea of like, why try to change or stop recurring dreams? You know, what's the point? Well, hopefully it has real tangible benefit. So.
Yeah, no. And that's what I want. I don't want to have this and I want to move on. Let that energy be used for something else.
Absolutely. That's okay. So yes. So having said that, my little blurb there, now I'm going to shut up and listen, and we're going to jump into your dream.
Yeah, no problem. So basically the dream has some variations, and I don't even like calling it a dream. It's more of a nightmare. And even now trying to explain it to you, you know, it's hazy in a lot of the aspects of it,
is, yeah.
But what the consistent similarities are,
let me stop you there. Actually, I want to get to that second, if I could. What I want to do is the most recent instance of it, get just a look at that, if we could, and then find the things we highlight, and then find those in other ones, if that's possible.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just so if we focus on kind of just the most recent instance, and then we can talk about how the other ones varied.
Okay. So basically, in the nightmare, we've gone through the divorce, which again, I didn't want. I did everything I could to save the marriage and the family. But then after a while, after 6 years of overtime, it was just like, there's only one biblical reason I can see for divorce, and it qualifies so I can be free. But yet I still try to stay and keep the family together. Didn't work that way. You need two people to give 100%. So ends up getting divorced. Now that's still reality. But in the dream, in the nightmare, it's like after we were divorced, but we're still stuck in this legal loophole. Well, there's a house that's big and complex and falling apart. And the original goal was to buy it, to fix it up, and to rent it out. And in the nightmare, we forget that, or at least I forgot that we had it, and my ex-wife uses it as leverage to keep me like just pulled in to the freaking psychosis and narcissism. And there's a realtor involved who knows about him too. I'm like, why haven't you sold this? Why haven't you reminded me of it? Why haven't you rented it? I'm like, now I'm still tied to this woman. I'm like, let's get rid of it. Let's fix it up. And then my ex-wife won't like sign it. She won't comply. She won't help me fix it. She won't release it. It's just like a torment. Like I have this control over you. And so in the actual home, it's always though, I'm like, forget it. I'm going to fix this thing up and get it sold. So I go in on my own. Nobody's helping me. And I'm fixing up this really complex property that's huge. And I always find these like hidden compartments and hidden rooms. And it's creepy. But I'm like, man, I don't care what it is. We're going to clean this up. We're going to fix it out. I don't care if we get this damn thing exercised. It's got to be gone. But the torment is always that I have this. It's pressure. It's time. It's holding me in. And even though we're divorced, we're not divorced. We're still wrapped together. So that's this recurring nightmare I have. And there's probably things I'm forgetting or not describing right. Like sometimes it's this like triplex. And sometimes it's this giant mansion with a staircase that goes up. But those are the two actual properties I remember. But there's always this darkness to it. There's always this like, holy crap, there's so many problems here. How do I take care of all these problems? How do I fix it? Nobody's helping me. And then it's just creepy. So that's it in a nutshell. So what do you got? What can you help me get freedom from this with?
Yeah, for sure. No, that's good material there. So in the most recent instance, which type of house was it? Was it like the triplex or the mansion or?
I think the most recent one was the mansion. And it was super like there's rooms I'm finding and like hidden pathways, but I'm like, man, you could fix this up and it would be so much fun to raise a family in. You know, your kids are crawling from one room to the other side of the house and, you know, but I got to make sure there's not some psycho living in here and like he's hiding in the walls. So it's like I can see the hope and the good and the potential, but it's just like so much work, you know?
Yeah. Whoop. Wish I could write faster. I'm trying to keep up. That's okay, but I don't want you to change anything. Okay, so this is, did you find over time, I know I said I wasn't going to do this right away, but that it used to be smaller properties, now it's bigger properties? Is that a change that kind of occurred over time? Like it used to be a smaller project, now it's mansion size. Has it kind of been growing in your mind? Or does it go back and forth on different occasions?
It goes back and forth, but it's always a giant project. And there's this other aspect too, where I even moved away and thought everything was resolved and divorced. And then I have to like come back and pick up a whole, like almost like not everybody has a cellar, but like a lower area of the home, like the basement part. And I have to pick up like all this stuff by a certain time and I have to move it and I have to find a place for it. And it's just like super stressful. And I just want nothing to do with it, but I have to do it.
Yeah.
I can't say the house is getting bigger, but It's always a massive project.
Okay. Gotcha. And that might be an interesting thing to look at is like why these two representations and what real life circumstances might be making you conceive of the problem one way at one times and another way at different times. Maybe we'll get around to that. Maybe it's an element that won't prove too significant, or at least that if we don't get an answer to that may not be the most important part. So on this particular instance, and you said that the context of the nightmare is always, we've gone through the divorce and we've separated, and now I'm being pulled back in to handle this property. And that at the beginning of this dream, that was consistent. You arrive there. Your first impression is, here I am at the place and here's why.
Yeah, like this could bankrupt me. Like I could be bleeding money. I could be sued. It's like a property we're just wasting and not using it for anything. And somebody could walk in there and get harmed and sue me. I mean, it's just like all the reality stresses that shouldn't be in life. It's like I actually feel that stress intensified in this dream. And I just want out. I want to remodel the house. I want to get out. I want to sell it. I want nothing to do with my ex-wife. I just want it over with. But there's always that realtor who's super sweet and she's never bad to me in the dream. or the nightmare, but she's always involved. Like, oh, I forgot too. Like, how the hell do you forget? I'm like, how do you forget to sell a house? So I'm like, you should be wanting to sell a house. You get commission.
Right. So in this particular dream, did she meet you out front or was she inside? What was kind of that sequence of events?
I had to call her on the phone and be like, what's going on? And then she comes to the house and kind of explains like, yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry. What do you want to do?
Okay.
I'm like, what do you mean what do I want to do?
And does that happen in the beginning of the dream or is that at a later point when you've already gone in to look at the project?
It's like, I'm already there. I already realize it happens. I'm already under stress. My ex-wife's already being a turd. And then it's like, hey, what are my options here? So it's like a third through it. And that's
a third of the way through. Okay. So so where do you arrive first in the dream? Like your first memory or image of the dream? Are you outside the house looking in, or you are in a specific room? Did you start in the basement and that's where you kind of woke up in the dream? What do you think?
Okay, so in the bigger house, in the mansion, I've never seen the outside. I'm always on the inside. It's dark. It's maroon. It's this giant like entryway with staircases that go up on both sides. I've never owned a home like that, but that's what I see. And it starts inside that area. The other house, that actually has a distinct location. The street I grew up with, there was an intersection. You walk down to the convenience store and there was always this empty property and nobody built on it. And that house, the one in my nightmare, is right there. It's a triplex. You can walk in the front. You can that's the big apartment. You can walk in the back and that's a smaller apartment. And then there's another like studio apartment underneath in the basement. But that one's very specific. I can see the outside, the inside, and it's a freaking nightmare.
So so with this specific mansion dream, your first impression is I'm in this dark maroon entryway. I can see double staircases. And what's the condition around there? Is that pretty well put together, or is that kind of the first inkling of
it looks like that
or trash?
That mansion looks like it's in the nightmare. It's like an old mansion that people abandoned. So there's like, the furniture's being draped and there's dust all over it. But you can tell at one point that was a really beautiful mansion, but now it's just run down. So the original thing when we were married still, we bought it to fix up and to either live in or sell or, flip or rent. But now in the nightmare, it's like we got stuck with it and I tried everything to fix everything else, and we're still stuck with this nightmare. And then nobody wants to help me with it, and she's not like, just sign the paperwork, let's sell it, and she won't.
Gotcha. So the specific imagery is not of one staircase being completely collapsed and the other one being a little unsteady. It's more just in this area specifically, a little more, you can tell it ain't as pretty as it could be, and it's got dust everywhere, and it just needs a lot of work to clean it, but then to kind of put a shine to it as well. And I'm trying to get a sense for, in this area, how broken everything is.
Yeah. So, okay. Oh, man, this is where I can't remember.
Okay. I might ask you things you cannot remember, and that's okay. That's okay. I rattle a lot of doorknobs.
In the other, okay, so again, I don't want to jump back and forth, but in the mansion, it's just dirty. And I'm finding all these rooms, and I'm like, okay, we got to clean this up. We got to move this furniture here.
Yeah.
We got to, do this, like, to make it presentable. It's not so much it's dilapidated. The other house where I can see the property, like where I grew up, and the three units, that is dilapidated. It's got like plaster and weird walls, and it's leaking, and the roof's leaking, and it's like, we have to fix this now. We can't sit on this. We're going to lose everything. Yeah. And it's like, they're like, oh, who cares? I'm like, what do you mean who cares? You want to lose more money?
Yeah. Okay. So on this one, it's not dilapidated. That's
it's not dilapidated
comparison. Yeah. So where do you go next? Do you go? You're in the entry foyer type area, and you see the double staircases. Do you go upstairs? Do you go down?
Yeah, I go up the right, like looking into it. I go up the right staircase, and as I start going up, I get this like creepy vibe. And then I start looking through the rooms, and it's like long hallway rooms on both sides. It's like a really massive mansion. And then as you open it up, it's like, oh man, if I was a kid, I'd love this. If I was a girl, if we had my daughter and her friends sleeping over, this would be awesome. So then it's like you walk in different rooms and there's like some has like all this furniture in it. I'm like, oh man, we don't need to buy furniture. We just need to move this into the other room. So again, it's like I remember all this stuff, but while I'm having the nightmare, it's like vivid and frustrating and strange. But then like I said, it's a cool house. It just needs work.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's definitely that mixture of a kind of creepy, nightmarish feel, juggling that with this hopeful potential. You know, if this can be put together well, it will be great. But you've also got this oppressive, stressful feeling from the responsibility of it in a way, of I've got to deal with this. And that's one thing I wrote down too, is that, you know, this, you never give yourself the impression in your dream that, you know, I can just walk away from this and I don't have to deal with this. Like there's going to be consequences either way. And it's going to be,
I have to deal with it.
Do something.
Yeah, I have to deal with it. And there's a distinct and fast approaching deadline. Like there's like major, and I can't even give you a timeline, but it's like I have to drop everything I'm doing. I have to put all my energy into that. And only by God's grace and hard work is there going to be a miracle to get it done on time.
Gotcha. So the first thing you did was go up that right side set of stairs. And at the top, there's kind of a landing, I imagine, a long hallway. And you're looking down there. Did you enter any specific room first? The one on your left, one on your right? Did you go down to the end?
I was just going down door to door to door, looking what I have to deal with.
Looking in the rooms, but not going in them necessarily?
If I saw, like, some of the rooms had rooms within a rooms or like lofts and cool things. So I'd go in and explore. It was basically evaluating what do I have to work with? What are repairs that need to be made? What has furniture? What doesn't have furniture? You know, and then that's when I start finding some of these rooms have like hidden compartments. And it's like, what the heck? And then I think there's some freak living in here, you know, like a horror movie.
Yeah. So if you put yourself back into that moment, the first room, any distinct features, and where was it kind of located? Trying to kind of see it through your eyes as much as I can.
Everything's mostly wood, like hardwood, floors, walls, beams, ceiling, like more rustic. And when I walk into the room to the right, it's kind of like a bedroom, but then it like goes down lower. There's stairs, and then it goes up to another level. It's almost like a closet, but then on the right, there's another level that goes up. So basically 3 of the levels are the same, but you go down to like pick which way you're going to go.
Yeah.
And then you go up to this like almost like extra, it's like another bed where I thought, oh man, kids would love to play here. Like, you know, be raised up. It's almost like a pirate ship in there. Yeah, this is so strange. This is so out, just for the listeners, this is so outside my comfort zone. I've never discussed this dream with anybody. So it's interesting that you had me on the show and we're talking about this.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I always, and for listeners out there, I always promise, no one will ever hear these interviews without your permission. That's, you know, if we get into something that is too personal and maybe I cut out sections, or no one ever sees it, because this is you, your head, your life, you're letting people in. So, you know, if you're listening to this, my guest gave permission for me to put it up. And if he didn't, well, I'm talking to myself, but right. So, and that's fascinating too, because a lot of folks tell the dreams, and just in exactly the way you did. Here's the gist. Here's the broad strokes. Here's kind of A to B to C. And then we start going into it. We go, okay, here's A1. Here's A1.5. Here's A2. And we kind of, and as soon as you start thinking about it, you're like, oh yeah. And then I saw this thing. Oh yeah. And there was this room and it had these multi-levels. And then there's like the pirate ship balcony looking thing. That'd be a cool place to put a bed. Kids would love this room, you know, that kind of thing. So that was the first room you went into, and it had those kind of complexities to it. Then you were assessing what would need to be done at the time. But also is this the first room you started to have that weird feeling to, or was that a different room?
Oh, it's immediate. When I go in, I'm on the stairs. It's like something like creepy's in here. So it's like immediately when I get in that house. But that's like the mansion version. The The other one is just I guess there is a distinct difference in the dreams because the mansion has that creepy vibe, but there's no real remodeling to be done.
Mm.
The triplex, there's no creeper vibe. It's just dilapidated and falling apart.
Yeah.
So maybe they're separate, maybe they're the same. Either way, there's a property. I'm stuck under huge stress and pressure, and I just want to get out.
Okay. There might be a very important distinction along those lines in the dream. And I think it is important, whether we can get to it, whether I can express it clearly or help you see it. Who knows? The thought that immediately popped into my head was the idea of one of these things is more of a physical challenge and the other one feels more like an emotional challenge. I don't know if that resonates with you in any way. Like this mansion, something about this mansion that presents an emotional challenge and the idea that you get this creepy feeling. It's more feeling based than the other. The other one's, man, this is just going to be it's going to break my back to do this one. This one actually, the mansion actually inspires a little bit of dread. It's like you're more uncomfortable with the work that needs to be done to make the mansion livable. The other one is more like, well, I'm entirely in my comfort zone with physical stuff. It's going to suck, but it doesn't terrify you in the same way. It's not something your mind is uncomfortable with. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. That's just the broad strokes of my.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think because that really just like even me explaining to you, like I said, I've never told any human about this. So this is very interesting.
Well, I am honored. Yeah.
But I might have told one person part of it, but other than that, no. But no. So when you were just saying that, the similarity emotionally between both is that this was such a great opportunity wasted. Mm. And now, because of things I haven't even caused or done, like I'm taking all the responsibility and the pressure and the liability, and nobody's helping me or doing anything, yet I'm supposed to be fixing this. So both of them have that feel, whether it's the emotional
component. Gotcha.
They both have that, like, absolutely. But then when I think about the mansion, I think, oh man, this would have been so much fun to fix up and raise our kids here. Or, you know what I mean? That's like the emotion this is super cool. The dilapidated houses is like, man, this could be beautiful, but it's going to take so much work and money and time. And can I fix it faster than it falls down around me? Mm-hmm. And there's something significant about the leaks and water coming in.
Yeah.
Because that's always like my number one frustration. Is like, how do we seal these leaks? We got to seal these leaks. We got to start, find the leak, get the new roof, whatever we got to do and seal this up. Then we can fix the rest.
Yeah, that's a very iconic thing too of, what am I trying to say? There's damage that needs to be repaired. That's one category of thing. Then there's damage that needs to be repaired that will continue to get worse because of a specific problem contributing that the longer you wait, the more damage is done. So there's kind of like fixing a broken thing and fixing a thing that is continuing to fall apart in front of your very eyes. And that's its own kind of urgency as well. Like this is not going to fix itself. Not only that, if I leave it alone, it's going to get worse. The mansion's a little different, another layer of dust, but it's a little more in better shape, and it's not. There's no leak. I mean, in that idea, whatever that leak represents, and that's why I'm going in that direction of an actively ongoing problem that is getting worse as you watch it, versus the other one where this is kind of static in a way. It can be fixed a lot easier without having to overcome first. Stop the worsening damage, then put it back together, then put a polish on it. So there's actually something missing from the mansion that is in the other dream. Just a lot of what I do is highlight these ideas of like, here's what stands out to me. For some reason, my flashlight hit this and it shined a light back at me in the dark here. And when that happens, I try to share those things and say why it felt significant to me. And then we just let it percolate. We come back to it. We don't, but sometimes it's almost like you got puzzle pieces and I'm throwing them at a table across the room, and some of them land perfectly, and some of them just kind of scatter on the table and fall into place later or don't. So we'll see. I love my analogies. But
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. I said, yeah. So
good deal.
The only other thing about the mansion that I'm kind of embarrassed to say is, remember I said it's like creepy. It feels evil. when I'm walking through the whole time, I'm commanding, I'm like, if there's any evil demon in here or spirit, I command you to leave through the power and love of Jesus Christ. You have no authority here and you cannot be here. And as I'm going through the house, in my dream or nightmare, whatever you want to call it, I'm praying that and driving this evil out. But it's I got work.
Are you feeling it's successful?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has to be. Dave Pasqualone has no power, but Jesus Christ has all the power. And I'm like, get out. You have no authority or right to be here. And they leave.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, and you could have shown yourself that your prayers were not being answered, but you didn't. You showed that they were. So that may be its own unique type of experience. Definitely, I mean, just that alone speaks to your reliance. Not reliance is wrong, but the strength you draw from your spiritual beliefs and how that contributes to how you see it as successfully helping you resolve problems. You know, you put it in a very iconic form of, in the name of Jesus, cast out the demons, and they go. This is almost like saying, here's what you believe, and here's a representation of it. But that is good. I mean, that's one way we deal with a lot of problems, is to bring our spiritual beliefs into them in terms of sustaining ourselves or following procedures that have been laid out by scriptural advice, that kind of thing. So to see it in your dream, I mean, it just kind of validates what you would probably say about your waking life is, yeah, this is very important to me. I believe it's the secret to my success in some ways. So, okay. So you're in that one bedroom and you're looking at it. There's a very much a complexity to it. And the multiple levels, but that was not the first place you had a specific feeling about the house. I was trying to tease that out in terms of when this creepy feeling started, and it was like walking up the stairs.
As soon as I walk in the house in the dream or the mansion, whatever, it just feels creepy. Like somebody's like watching us. And I don't say that out loud to anybody who's in the dream, even though I don't like them. I don't tell them. I'm like trying to protect them. It's like,
gotcha.
I'm going to take care of this.
Did you have a feeling that other people were there with you?
Wait, in the dream, like the realtor was there and my ex-wife was there. And I can't remember if anybody else was there, but then they're just basically bitching, like complaining, stupid ideas, like wasting time. And I'm like, listen, I just got to get stuff done. So that's when I start walking up the stairs. And the more I go up the stairs, the more I get this creeper vibe. And that's when I'm like, you know what? There's nobody that can stop this. Me, I'm done. I got God. If you're in my way, get the hell out. I don't care if you're human or demon. If you're a psycho living in the walls, I'm going to find you and kick you out. If you're a demon, you're going to get exercise. Just, we're getting this over with.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's good detail. So your ex-wife was already there. I mean, you weren't alone in this dream. There were other people. So that'll represent something else too, the way you, connect some dots. I mean, I think all of this is very much related to your relationship, your ex-wife. I mean, she features heavily, and so it's gotta be, but you actually placed her there with you, and your perception, your understanding of her involvement in that experience was complaining primarily, not contributing.
Yeah. Okay. And then even as I'm like finding these rooms and tunnels and this cool stuff, I'm excited. I'm like, man, you got to see this. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, and then all I hear is like, negative stuff and what's the big deal? I'm like, are you kidding me? This is awesome. You know how much money we're going to get for this house? I'm like, this is cool.
What were the nature of some of her complaints in the foyer area? I mean, do you have a distinct sense of specific?
Well, that I truly don't remember. Gotcha. And what ones with reality and the nightmare, they're very similar. And then I'm getting blamed for stuff she does, and I'm like, this is crazy bad. So that's why in the dream, it's like she's like acting all sweet to the realtor. Like, oh, yeah, we got to do something with this. And then she looks at me like, ha, sucker. I'm not signing those damn papers. You're stuck here. And your life's going to be ruined because of me even more. So that's her role in the dream. And again, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that's how she is in reality, but that's how it is in the dream.
A person legally distinct from my wife in my dream was one way and not the other.
Exactly. She's already ruined enough of my life. I don't want to do any more. But like the fact is, we're talking about my perception of reality, my perception of the dream. Yeah. You can read it. You can talk to her if you want her perspective.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, nothing wrong with that. And it didn't really have to be anything like her. It could be completely different. And that would still be its own kind of significant experience. So yeah, you've definitely got this kind of, at least a representation of a two-faced nature, sweet to one person, giving them one impression and behaving very differently towards you, in the dream, and being more intentionally disruptive. It's not even being unhelpful in complaints. It's more like malicious.
Yeah. Like I want to ruin you for no reason. Like, it's like, are you kidding me? We could benefit us both. And yet your objective is to ruin me.
Yeah.
Like, there's no good that can come from that.
So she was, then with you as you're walking through the rest of the house, also that first bedroom.
No, it's only in that entryway.
Okay. Stay in the entryway.
Yeah, only in the entryway. Then I leave to go explore the house. And then I remember like, hey, you got to come see this. And I'm calling to the realtor and her. And then they come and I start showing them around. And I'm like, we need to follow this like tunnel. Like we need to follow this down. I'll go first, but you guys stay here together just in case. Like, because you're going out a tunnel. It could be like a midpoint that they come back out.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, you guys stay here and keep talking so I know you're safe. And I'm going to go pursue these tunnels and see what I can find or who I can find. Or is it just a cool old house that people abandon?
Did you find that tunnel in the first bedroom you're at, or in the next room you came to?
Oh, the tunnel. I think I was getting to the point where I started thinking like everything was interconnected, but the tunnel was like further down. And we went like down a stairs, and there was like a hidden doorway. And then that room was almost like behind the walls. So there was like a room behind the walls. You could see 2x4s and the inside of like what the hell is it called? A fireplace. So you're seeing inside the wall of that main like entryway.
Okay.
And then it goes like up on both sides where you can crawl. And then there's like, that's where the tunnels were, like going through the house.
Okay.
And I'm not doing a very good job at this. Sorry.
That's okay. That's why I asked the questions.
This is well outside my comfort zone.
Yeah. And sometimes I get a little obsessive with nailing down details that don't end up being important. Sometimes the act of asking some of these questions brings up other stuff, and that turns out, that's why I was saying earlier, I'm happy to be wrong if it gets us where we're going, because sometimes I ask a completely wrong question that has no answer, but something else comes up as a result of it, and it ends up being beneficial. I'm like, God, great grace of God style. Like, I don't know why I asked the wrong question. I just followed my intuition, and then it brought us somewhere. So speaking of nitpicky questions, we nailed down that you went up the stairs, and then you saw the first room was kind of a bedroom. Do you have any kind of chronology of some of the other rooms you passed by or inspected briefly, and what type of rooms they were? I mean, you've identified a bedroom. Was there just more bedrooms, or was one of them a study? Was one of them a sewing room?
So there was like room after room after room, and there was like an outward corridor and like an inward corridor, and there was like sub hallways that connected. But when you went to that outward corridor, like the edge of the house, there was still like access panels, like an attic and a breathing area for the house. And I thought, there's so many weird things in this house. If I go through there, is there going to be more in these? But I never go into it. It's like there's so much going on. There's so much time, and there's this, frankly, I'm like, if it's this weird here, I'm not going in there unless I have a buddy to go in with me. Like, I'm not going to go into those side access panels. But as I'm walking through the actual main corridors, there's rooms to the right, there's rooms to the left, there's rooms between, and most of it's just like wood floors, wood walls, like really old school, but beautiful. And then some rooms are filled with furniture. Some rooms are empty. And I keep thinking, we'll move this to here, move this to here. We don't even have to buy any furniture. This is all going to work out. And then I'm thinking, man, this is so cool. That would have been awesome to live here and enjoy this.
Okay. So eventually, all that exploration brought you around to this, and it seems like this passageway, kind of hidden area, was significant in some way because that's when you called out to the other folks to come and join you, your ex-wife and the realtor.
Yeah, like I need your help whether you want to do this or not. And then the other thing significant about it is when it's done, when I go around, it leads back. So it's like the corridor you can branch off, but I just followed the main. So it was basically a circle back. So like I said, when you walked into that room, it went down, then the stairs go up, but then the stairs went back down around and connected to each other. Okay. And that really freaks me out because I heard that demonic portals or circles, and this house is eventually making a circle. So further moving into the creepy feel. I'm just going to burn the thing down.
Right. So just to get it clear in my head, you called them to this entry point, told them, look, I'm going in, you stay here. And it brought you back around to where they were.
Yeah. So okay, if you walk in and then you see a staircase going up like two directions.
Yeah.
Well, they're at the top right. And we didn't even know the staircase came around to the top left. But then when I walk around, I'm seeing all the rooms, portal, like doors to those rooms. So I'm like, wow, this whole house is interconnected. That's super cool, right?
Yeah.
And then when I come around, it's like, hey, I'm right here. So I'm like, that's it. And I don't remember anything after that.
After that was kind of the end of that portion of the dream. Okay.
Yeah, I always wake up like running out of time, and like I never get closure to the dream. It's like I don't get to fix it, I don't get to sell it, it doesn't get resolved. It just goes away. Maybe the next night I have the same nightmare, or maybe it's 6 months, not usually 6 months, but 3 months, a month, and then I'll have it again. And again, now that I'm thinking and talking to you, like I said, there's at least 2 variations of the house, maybe a third. Like, so, but there's always that pressure and I have to do it, and it's by a certain date, and it feels like trash.
If you had to kind of try to give some kind of a description of the third type of house, what would you say about it?
The third type of house, I was remembering while we were talking, it's like there's one door in, and it's almost like in like a city grid in a convenience store type. And you walk in, there's this long, like kind of open hallway as you go down. It's like, I don't know what you call it, salmon, orange, peach. And it's like stucco. And as you go in, you have to get the key, and I get the key to go in, and nobody would go in with me. And then when I go in, that one is like dilapidated too. It needs a lot of work. It's like a money pit. And then downstairs in the basement, I find this whole room of stuff that I need to move that I forgot we put there. So then it's like, oh, I'm barely going to make the timeline as it is. And this is another 2 days of work. So I need to get a storage truck and move everything, and nobody's helping me. So.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. And now that we've kind of gone through the dream from beginning to end, teased it apart a little bit, seen some more moving pieces. Once we go through that, I'd like to then and only then ask, relative to the time frame of this dream, can you think of any particular stress you were under in waking life? And it could have been a week before, the night before.
We're going through the divorce. I mean, like I said, stuff happened in 2014 and 2015, and I should have got divorced right away. But I spent literally through 2021 trying to keep the family together, and it just got me depressed, and it was brutal, and it was physically bad for me, mentally bad for me, emotionally bad for me.
And that was regarding the first dream that set up the series in a way, or that's when
I never had those dreams until like the middle of the chaos. Like, gotcha. I don't know what the year would be, but sometime between 2015 and now. And
then with this most recent example, anything happened in that week before that might have, you say you go on months in between having the dream, then there's usually a reason it comes back. There's usually something that happens that is related to that iconography that returns your mind to the question that has been crystallized in this form. So around that time, what would you say was going on in your life? Major stressors?
There was some stuff going on with my teens, not kids, 19 and 20, but nothing like they didn't do anything stressful or wrong. It was just like, my son's moving to California. So what kind of dad doesn't want,
Okay.
like he's moving to LA. So I'm like, I want to do everything I can to help him to pursue his dream. But at the same time, it's like, frick, LA, really? It's like, so that was going on. And there was some stuff, with my daughter, same type of similar things. Like it was stressful to me as a man who loves his daughter,
Gotcha.
but it wasn't, they connect me to my ex-wife, but other than that, I can't think of any other.
No, I think it's very relevant that you brought that up. That was, without leading you to talk about that, that was kind of what was on my mind, is that this is, it's going to be connected to family in some way or another, either, or your, personal entrepreneurial endeavors, but most likely family is what I was thinking. You had a recent negative experience with the ex because you had to deal with something. But nope, this was kids was actually top of my mind on that. Some stressful thing, and it doesn't have. It's not like a catastrophe stressful. It's not major trauma stressful. Although separating from your kids because one's moving away and the other one's going through personal stuff is its own envelope of stuff, and that may have brought, you identified those two things as things that you were going through, experiences you were having, and that probably had something to do with why this dream came back. So why this dream and why in this form? A lot of the details I'm saying. So we've identified that it started right around the divorce and during the period of time where you hadn't quite finalized the divorce yet. Is that how you described it?
Wait, are you talking about in reality or in the dream?
Well, in reality, yeah. When the first dream came to you way back when, X number of years ago, you were.
You know what? Let me think through that, because in the nightmare, I don't even want to call it a dream because it's so stressful. In the nightmare dream, whatever you want to call it, I thought we were done and divorced, and the prevailing like torment is it's not over. It's still hanging out there because you guys never resolve this. So until you resolve this, it's not fully over. You're stuck.
Yeah.
Now, in reality, I can't remember. It didn't start right away when all the chaos happened in the family. It did start later in the process, but I didn't separate until January 1st of 2021. And I had it before then. So I'm trying to remember. I guess back then we just bought the house. It was still, I'm trying to save everything and keep everything together and turn this disaster into profitability. And she was like, whatever, like no help. But now it's definitely, I thought we were divorced and now we're still stuck together. I want this over with. Let's finish this. If this is the last piece, if this is the wedge in the door, throw it away and shut that door completely.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I was trying to nail down a little bit in my own mind, the timeline of when it happened. So it sounds like it might have even come to you when you were first starting to come to grips with the idea that a separation would be necessary, that it was probably going to happen. And is that what it sounds like?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, because I was just like, just hold on, wait for the miracle. Hold on, everything you can't control, but it's going to work out. And, just wait for that miracle. But while I was waiting for the miracle, it was just killing me, and it hurt my relationship it hurt the kids, hurt my relationship with the kids. It hurt a ton. The only person who benefited was Satan and her.
Yeah, definitely.
And the attorneys.
Yeah, because I think the time frame, the context of what was going through your mind based on real life experiences and how you crystallize it in this form that is now coming back. It's like when similar stresses return, or it's like your brain's identified a formula of how something goes wrong or what it looks like for something to be in a bad shape. A very difficult situation that may have no good answer that you can't resolve on your own because people pull it against you or you have no help. Whenever that comes back, this it seems like this dream is coming back to say, it's just like this. It's just like what you went through before. So we get, that's why when I say crystallize, it's like we could have many different kinds of nightmares that all relate to fear of water, perhaps, maybe because you almost drowned as a kid and that just keeps coming back and maybe you're never quite going to shake it. But then we have dreams that are like, no, it's a waterfall. It's always a waterfall. It's always crushing me at the bottom and I can't swim out, that kind of a thing. When it gets into that specific shape, a specific form, it's got to be about a recurring specific type of pattern from life. That there's the pattern again, dream. There's the pattern again, dream. So that's what I'm discovering about the reoccurring dreams. So what we've got in this, what it looks like, the shape of it, from what I can see, it's definitely about feeling trapped in a situation. Like you've got this responsibility you can't get out of. You're not getting the help you need, perhaps. The project is huge. It can't be ignored. It's got to be dealt with, and the pressure's all on you to resolve it. But you've got, in the mansion dream, at least, you've got like, this could be a really good thing if it works out well, versus the other dream, which is like, this is just going to be a pain in the ass to fix. And that's just to get it up to livable, not something that could be truly beautiful. Where am I going with that? I made some kind of carrots there. So I think what I'm thinking is that it is very much tied up with relationships generally, but also specifically. That's why my first thought was this is probably due to ongoing struggles with wife and kids. And in a sense, something I wanted to say since the very beginning was that once you get kids with someone, you are never divorced. In a way, you separate legally and you disentangle your finances, and that's the mother of your kids, and she's always going to be there, and she's always going to be an influence. And a problem that's actually never going to go away in some senses. So I think probably what you're doing with this is trying to turn your problems at different angles to see, what am I trying to say? How do I better cope or make it through these situations that I'm kind of stuck in, number one, and that are kind of forced upon me and that are tremendously stressful, and where I feel like it's all on me and I got no help. And every time that kind of comes back, you get this, it's just like when I was going through the divorce. It's just like, I think I'm rambling to some degree, but I want to stop and just get your feedback on that. Like, did any of that resonate, or specific elements of it? Like, it's definitely that, maybe not so much that. What do you think?
Yes. Like talking through it and saying it out loud. A lot of this, I'm like, yeah, like I think the core feeling I have in the nightmare is this, just like everything's falling apart around us and nobody's doing anything to help, and nobody's even acknowledging there's a problem. So saying it out loud, I feel stupid. It's like, well, kind of representative of our marriage.
Literally falling apart. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, we are gifted with this beautiful mansion, these kids, and so much potential, and it could have been used for good. And instead it went down this dark path, and I didn't even do it. You know what I mean? So, and then the lack of help and the lack of control of the outcome. Yeah, I think it's all doing it. So now the question is, how do I get it to stop? Because in reality, I'm not tied to her other than through the children. Mm-hmm. But again, they're 19 and 20. So I have no interaction with her. Thank God. I don't, like people say they have a divorce and they're still friends. Well, that's not the case.
Sometimes.
I mean, I did everything I could to keep the marriage together, and now I'm done. And there's been so much damage that unless there's like a real coming to Jesus on her part and apologizing and fixing the damage she's done and correcting the lies, I have no reason to put my head back in the fire or in the furnace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, definitely. I just recovered from being stabbed. Why do I walk back to the person who stabbed me?
Well, and just that acceptance that you cannot change another person. You can want them to change. You can encourage them to change. You can hope and pray that they change. and they got to change if they want to.
Yeah.
It's got to come from them. It's like, what do they say? Forgiveness is only possible after repentance. So it's like really a thing. It's, someone has to be actually repentant, and then you can offer forgiveness. I mean, sometimes you offer forgiveness for yourself. Look, I'm not going to hold it against you beyond like not trusting you, but I'm not looking for revenge. I'm not going to keep hate in my heart. That's one kind of forgiveness. But the other, really granting true forgiveness, someone has to say, I'm sorry, I screwed up, and you go, I'm going to accept that, and we're going to rebuild it. But you got to both be on the same page on that. And there's a lot of metaphors too with, a house being a home. Metaphor for that, and the idea of working together on the remodel. If she was your partner, that would mean she was a different person, but she was actually actively working to tear it down, to sabotage it in that way. I'm hearing something in my shop. I don't know what it is, but it's probably nothing. Could be one of the cats.
Pronounce it in the name of Jesus.
Right. Definitely. I'm like, what is that? Is that raccoons? No, they don't come out in the daytime. Must be one of the cats. So it seems like maybe what got crystallized was the feeling of helplessness in a way, the feeling that you couldn't prevent your marriage from falling apart despite your best efforts. And it wasn't your fault, but that leaves you with this feeling. And it's more of that kind of, I guess helplessness isn't the right word, but it kind of gets at the basic idea. It's like, what do you do? How do you accept a situation you can't change when it's awful? And the only thing you want it to do is change. And it's all going to go sideways eventually, because that is what happens. So this kind of crystallized thing of our home we're trying to build together falling apart. She's actively disruptive. She wants it to fall apart. True from real life. And the kids could have been happy here. We could have had this beautiful thing together. So you had this one, probably the most severe trauma of your life, excluding if you ever went to war or, survived almost being paralyzed in a car accident. There's a few things that are more traumatic than the end of a marriage. And you got kids, and especially if you struggled to keep it together and you felt sabotaged, that probably crystallized in your mind. So that now, we draw the connection to that with your kids leaving. Now, your kids are very central to the whole trauma. They were affected by it. You were affected by it. Your kids leaving is also what jumped into my mind was the idea that that's another thing you have no control over. They're grown adults. They're moving away for their own reasons. They're not doing anything wrong. They're not doing it to hurt you. It still hurts. It's still a separation you wish maybe didn't have to happen. It's one of those things where it's like, it's a tragedy where no one's at fault. They got to live their life and you got to live yours. But there's going to be the pain, the suffering of an unavoidable, separation. Your immediate physical connection with your kids is going to fall apart in a way that you talk to them on the phone, but they're not here anymore. They're not right here. I don't know if that's resonating with you too, like why that might have brought this dream back of here's another thing happening that I have no control over.
With my children, I mean, if we talk once a day or once a year, as long as we're right with God and one another, I'm totally fine with it. But I feel like there's so many things between us. Like we used to be close, and my ex resented that. She was always jealous of it. Like I was super close to my son and super close to my daughter. And throughout this, it's been twisted and perverted and polluted. And it's a real issue. So that hasn't changed my love for my children, but our relationships have definitely changed. So again, my son moving to LA, any father who loves his kid freaking LA, it's like worst economy, worst politicians, riot, chaos. Right now, that's not the place to be.
I cannot recommend California.
Exactly where he's going. So it had nothing to, like, that's where my stress was. I love my son.
For sure.
I want to be safe. But I feel like I do have the balance where it's like, man, I want to see them thrive. I just want to have a good relationship with them. So again, it's like, you have friends you talk with weekly, you have friends you talk with once every 3 years. But if they're a real friend, when you get together, pick back up where you left off. So my kids need to grow and explore and find their own way. But I'm sure maybe that's what the houses are. Like, I mean, they're my kids, they're beautiful and so much potential. And I'm tied to them, but I don't know if that analogy would fully follow, because then I wouldn't be trying to get rid of them. So that probably isn't a good analogy.
Well, flipping the house to sell is not, I don't think that's indicative. It's indicative of a successful conclusion to the experience. So if you make a beautiful home and you sell it, another family's going to move in there. You're making the profit off it. You're getting a return on your investment type of thing. And that's more of a, what is it? If you could successfully do that, it wouldn't be a nightmare, because it would be like, it all worked out. Maybe it was struggling and it felt creepy and it was a lot of work, but it turned out okay. This is more of like a frozen image, like I say, a crystallized iconography of certain, overwhelming troubles that you cannot resolve. It's that, what am I trying to say? And maybe I'm wrong and you disagree and you say, nope, that's not it. And we move on. But, the, serenity prayer, help me change the things I can, accept the things I can't, and, the wisdom to know the difference. And so I think there's some theme in this type of thing that just got the specific imagery, the incident that started it all, put it in that visual form, so that anytime your mind comes back to that feeling, the image comes back up. You say apple, people see, red, shiny, maybe a little leaf on the top, maybe the Apple logo with a thing cut. But every time you say it to a specific person, they're going to have the same image that pops up in their head. So it seems like the same real life experience of a certain kind is bringing that back up. And, so I don't think the idea of selling the home is like you're trying to get rid of your kids or your wife. Like you would be doing this for the success of your family. So if it were successful, it would be like that. But, that's, I suppose that might be the best I can do with this in terms of.
Yeah, I know. I just want to know how to just basically bring closure to it and move on.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, if we have the right broad strokes understanding, then if it comes back, it might be slightly different. Now the players are different. Now you don't need a real estate agent, or she's the only one there, or later your wife is gone, or this time she's just sitting over in the corner, not doing anything, neither helpful nor getting in your way. That these specific elements might change. Or in order to get it to go away fully, it would need to be, we would have need to have hit upon the general theme of it, of how do I accept things I cannot change in a way that relieves me of the burden to feel like I'm responsible to fix it. So there's something in there as well. It's like, too much, what am I trying to say? Setting the expectations for yourself too high. Like if I was better, I could deal with this. And really, Superman couldn't do it. Even Superman can't change someone else's feelings or resolve a tragedy where no one's at fault. In terms of classic examples, unrequited love. No one's at fault. I didn't make you love me necessarily, and I can't make myself love you back. It's just, it is what it is. No one's at fault. So if we hit it, and it is related to setting reasonable expectations for yourself and how to process and be copacetic with situations genuinely beyond your control, it might take some steps towards developing coping skills on that, or the next dream you have of this kind might start showing you different angles that will, what am I trying to say? Give you suggestions of how to accomplish that. So it'll move you from, I'm out of control again, to, well, here's how I learned to be okay with that, with things I can't control, with things I can't resolve, the things that are just beyond my ability. So if we got it right, something's going to change. And I'd love to hear from you about whether anything we said does help. And if it doesn't, I'm happy to try again. Actually, it's been just a fascinating conversation, a real challenge for me too, to try and pull all these pieces together. So if it doesn't change, I don't think we hit it, but if it does, I want to hear about it. So.
Yeah. And again, after speaking this out loud, it's almost like, why not just let it all fall apart? Like, why was I working so hard to keep the inevitable from happening? What's the worst that can happen? I go bankrupt? Like the most important thing is God and your family. And if all that already got destroyed, then who cares about the money? So I'm kind of like thinking through this, like, why am I fighting? Like Psalm 1, stand not in the way of sinners. Like, why? Don't even try to get in their way.
Would be a fascinating conclusion. Like the dream comes back, and this time you're like, screw it.
Okay,
you go sit
forgive me. Yeah,
and feed the pigeons.
Like, just let it burn.
Yeah,
let it burn. Let me go to bankrupt.
Fire, literally. Yeah.
Yeah, like, go ahead. They can steal it. They can take it. I got my life. I got my God. I got my kids. It's all that matters. So I think that's going to be kind of, that's what it's going to come down to. It's just like, I think I just stopped fighting. Maybe that was like the whole resolution. I'm fighting it in real life and I'm fighting in my dreams. And it's just like, let it go.
Yeah.
Go to foreclosure. I could care less.
Yeah. And that can be very difficult too, especially if something is, if you're emotionally
I'm not a
attached.
quitter.
Well, yeah, that too. But
I'm not a quitter. So it's like, do you ever see the Guardian, not the, they have all the Marvel movies, but the one where Doctor Strange sits there and he's like looking for the solutions. And he's like, I went through 14,282 solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mind works like that. I will just keep obsessing until I find a solution.
Yeah.
And this is a problem that never had a solution. So maybe that's what I just need to do. I just need to accept. I haven't fully accepted it.
Yeah, that could be part of it. And that's very tough because there's the motivation for it. We get attached emotionally to wanting good outcomes. And we have, I think you and me both, very analytical mind and a lot of high expectations for ourselves of like, if I just think about this longer, harder, if I put more effort into it, if I'm more determined, a possible answer must exist and I will find it. And letting go of that, letting go of the emotional attachment to a specific outcome, it can be tremendously hard. It's not like you're doing anything wrong in having that struggle. It's like, how does anybody do that? It's miraculous that anybody can sometimes say, I see it now. It's not going to happen. And I got to find a way to be okay with that. And I think most of us do eventually, but that's yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, Benjamin. I think we're on to something here. So we'll keep you posted on the outcome. But yeah, I think that's it. I think it's just me. I fought in real life to keep everything together. And on the back of my sweat and stress and efforts, like the benefit and the prosperity came at no effort to the other parties. And in my dream, it's like nobody cares. And I'm putting all the effort in. And I'm going to do backbreaking work, emotionally just devastating work. And in the end, everybody's going to benefit. And I'm still going to get my everything stolen from me. Like I did all the labor and I'm getting it stolen away. So I'm just going to let it go to foreclosure, burn the thing down. Be like, hey, get out of the house. I'm about to light it on fire.
I would love to hear from you if that actually happens. That would be a hallelujah moment right there. Well, I think if we got, for the moment, enough to think about. I mean, a good enough answer for you for now. We'll wrap it up.
Man, I appreciate it, Benjamin. And hopefully this gave your audience some benefit, not just hearing me ramble. But I think the first half, definitely there's some benefit, some things for us all to think about. The second half was me rambling through my mind in dreams or nightmares. So hopefully it all comes somehow to God's glory. Forgive me for my failures and filthy mouth. And again, my failures are not his. Just remember that. He's perfect.
I think it's all of it fascinating. And the second half, especially, a tremendous lesson on people to like the benefit you can get from self-reflection. We're just looking at something you experienced, like anything else you'd experience awake, and making sense of it, how you felt and what happened. I think, yeah, for sure. Well, I'm going to do this then. I'm going to say thank you to our guest, David Pasqualone, marketing consultant, cigar enthusiast, host of the Remarkable People podcast. You can find his work at davidpasqualone.com. Links in the description. I couldn't spell it either without writing it down. And
it's just like Smith.
What's that?
Just like Smith.
Absolutely. It's the Smith of Italia. Forthcoming book you said on January 1st?
Yep. January 1st release date.
And it is Remarkable People Volume 1, How They Did It. And you can too. I'm going to do my housekeeping. Please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. T-shirt, coffee mug, 15 books of historical dream literature for sale. BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com. And I'm just going to say once again, David, thanks for your time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Benjamin. I look forward to continuing the relationship.
Right on, everybody out there. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Ciao.